Heartwarming moment. Little girl's handache exposed. Millionaire dad's incredible rescue revealed. In the quaint Midwestern town of Hopeville, 10-year-old Emily Lee was on the verge of a discovery that would change her world forever. With chestnut curls that bounced as she ran, and eyes gleaming like the brightest stars, she embodied a fiery spirit that refused to be tamed. But behind her triumphs in the small mechanic shop owned by her dad, Jim, lay a realm of tension and worry that festered like an open wound. Cold rain drizzled outside, painting the windows with streaks of gloom as Emily's heart raced. She was about to turn a simple afternoon into something extraordinary. As Jim meticulously worked under the hood of a car, the hum of machines blended with raindrops, masking the weight of his worries. Rising costs pressed against his shoulders, and while he tried to smile for Emily, his eyes often carried a cloud of despair. But today was different. Emily felt an itch of creativity. Her fingers tingled with the promise of something special. In the corner of the cluttered workshop lay a pile of discarded wood scraps. With determination as fierce as a summer storm, she grabbed a piece and began to carve, the scent of pine filling the air. Moments later, laughter erupted from nearby children playing outside. Their laughter inspired a newfound focus as Emily chiseled away, her tiny hands expertly shaping the wood into a beautiful toy car. She couldn't have imagined, even in her wildest dreams, how this simple act would light a spark in the hearts of the entire town. When she presented her creation to the kids, their eyes widened and smiles grew large, igniting a rise of dreams among them. "Look at what I made," she exclaimed, her voice bursting with pride. But as Emily poured her soul into every piece she crafted, Jim's stress spiraled into fury. Harsh words punctured the air like shards of glass, creating a rift filled with misunderstanding. "Stop wasting your time," he shouted one evening. Her heart sank, and the tender spark that had ignited her passion flickered dangerously low. Emily clenched her sore hands, the ache a reminder of both ambition and strife. She tried to focus on the beautiful creations surrounding her, but the walls felt too close, and her dreams echoed against the weight of their struggles. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just as despair seemed to consume them, a local news segment introduced an unexpected hero. Sam, a millionaire entrepreneur who had once called Hopeful home, watched the story of Emily's dreams and their family's struggles unfold on his television. Moved to action, Sam returned, looking to light a flame of hope not just for Emily and Jim but for the entire town. Meeting them was like witnessing a storm clear, as Sam became the beacon they both needed. They sank into deep conversation, unearthing their biases and dreams as the community stretched their hands toward the Lee family. Emily, heart aflame, saw glimmers of hope in her father's eyes amid their flaws. But would these growing connections be enough to mend their family while the ache in her hands lingered on? As the clouds above began to part, Emily's vibrant spirit flickered back to life, but unspoken questions loomed in the air. Could they truly bridge the chasm between them and ignite a transformation that would inspire everyone around them? Emily's heart raced with the thrill of possibility as she meticulously sanded the final touch on her wooden toy car. Each stroke of the sandpaper felt like a gentle promise she was making to herself, a promise that hope can flourish, even amongst hardship. The fading light cast warm hues across the workshop, illuminating her proud creation. She glanced at Jim, who sat nearby, fatigue etched across his face. For a moment, their eyes met, and she saw a flicker of something wonder, perhaps? "Look, Dad. Isn't it great?" Emily exclaimed, holding up the car, its polished contour gleaming. But instead of the pride she craved to see, a shadow of doubt crossed Jim's face. "It's nice," he mumbled, but the weight of his voice fell heavy in the room. It felt like a door quietly closing on her joy. Disappointed, Emily turned away, her heart a fragmented mirror reflecting her feelings of rejection. It stung being so close, yet feeling so far. How could she reach her father when there were invisible walls between them? The warmth of inspiration that filled her moments earlier dulled, leaving just the draft of uncertainty. Later that evening, as the storm finally began to fade, Emily sat on the floor of their small living room, running a finger over the rough edges of the car. Each scratch and bump told the story of her labor, her feelings, and her dreams. Just then, the television flickered to life, and the news anchor shared stories about Sam's return. As the familiar face of her hometown flashed across the screen, Emily felt an unexpected warmth in her heart. This man, this millionaire, had to remember what it meant to grow up in Hopeville. Maybe he could help us, she thought, growing tighter in her resolve. She had started something big, and she needed to find a way to share it. There had to be a way for Sam to see how far she had come. The next day, emboldened by the possibility of making it right, Emily took her toy to the park where the other kids often gathered. She spotted Sam talking animatedly to a group of parents. Determined, she walked straight up to him, clutching her toy car with hands that still throbbed but now with purpose. "Mr. Sam," she called out, her voice piercing through the gentle haze of laughter and chatter. The laughter ceased, and heads turned toward her. The adults watched curiously as Sam turned his attention to this brave girl with twinkling eyes and determination. "What can I do for you, Emily?" he asked with genuine curiosity, with all the courage she could muster. She held up the toy car. "I made this for kids. I want to show everyone what we can create with our hands." Her plea resonated in the air, mingling with the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. Sam's eyes softened, accepting the challenge she had laid at his feet. "Let us make it happen," he said, an earnest smile spreading across his face. Around them, the parents began to murmur, intrigued. Emily felt the glimmer of hope reignite within her as she envisioned crafting not just dreams, but a community united around them. The ache in her hands transformed into strength, but the tension with her father lingered in the back of her mind. But there were still obstacles ahead. Could Sam's promise to help really change their lives? How would Jim react to this new opportunity? Questions hung in the air, poised to leap into action at any moment. Emily's heart raced again, this time with questions of her own. Would her father support her bold move, or would this be another source of tension? Emily stood in the park, surrounded by curious parents and children, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Sam's offer seemed like a vivid dream, a lifeline she hadn't even known she needed. Yet, doubts crept in like shadows. Laughter resumed and parents exchanged glances of approval. Emily felt the weight of her father's doubt hanging around her shoulders. He hadn't really smiled. He hadn't really believed in her. Did she truly have what it took to make her dreams come true, or was she grasping at something fleeting? "Let us gather the kids." Sam's voice broke through her musings, slicing away her insecurities. He was already securing the attention of the group, asking the children if they wanted to help her bring her toy car to life. The joy in their faces made her heart swell. She felt important, the center of something larger. But still, the flickering worry about Jim tugged at her mind. How would he react to all of this? As Sam chuckled with the kids, Emily's thoughts flitted back to her father. Would he dismiss her effort again, just like he had done before? Did he even know how hard she had worked? Suddenly, she felt a pang of resolve. It was time to show him, not just the car but what she was capable of. It was time he understood. "Okay, kids," Sam called. "We're going to help Emily build something amazing. Who's ready to bring her idea to life?" Cheering erupted, and Emily couldn't help but laugh too. For the next hour, they crafted elaborate plans for her toy fleet of cars that would race down a little wooden track they'd build together. The children were bursting with excitement, tossing ideas around like confetti in the breeze. Emily took every suggestion and stitched them into her vision. She felt empowered, leading the charge on this creative journey, but without realizing it, she had drifted away from the park's edge, where she could still see Jim sitting alone on a bench. He was miles away from them, looking drained and distant, both physically and emotionally. She couldn't shake the vision of his tired face. Emily? The energy of the kids broke her focus momentarily. Sam was squatting down next to her, his demeanor kind and genuine. You've got something really special here. This isn't just a toy. It can be a community project. You'll help kids learn and grow. Her heart leaped at his words. Really? You think so? Absolutely. Think of it as a chance to make new memories, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. His smile was encouraging, and his belief in her wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Yet, in the midst of the excitement, Emily stole another glance at Jim. He remained seated, his expression unreadable. She had wanted him to see her sparkle, but his indifference hit like a cold draft. Do we have your permission to involve all the kids in this project? Sam continued, drawing her eyes back. Yes, she replied, buzzing with enthusiasm. Let us do it. But as the cheers erupted again, a small voice inside her whispered doubts. Would this really change everything? As she turned her back to Jim once more, he stood up abruptly, catching her off guard. He began walking toward her, slowly, almost hesitantly. Was he finally curious about what she had started, or was it something else? Emily's heart raced anew with anxiety and hope. What if she had finally stirred something within him? But just as he reached her side, the ski of clouds darkened, and a distant rumble of thunder rolled across the field. Would her moment of triumph be overshadowed by the storm brewing not just in the sky, but between father and daughter? She felt the energy shift. Would her father understand, or would the walls of the past swallow her dreams whole? The moment hung in the air, heavy with unspoken words and the weight of raw emotion. Everything felt charged, poised to explode into a new chapter. Would they break through the barriers? Or would this be another lost opportunity? Emily's breath caught in her throat. Jim was now just a few steps away, his features shadowed and unreadable. The laughter of the kids faded into the background as she waited for him to speak. She could feel the tension tightening around her heart. Emily, he started, his voice low and hesitant. I saw you with the kids. It's nice what you're doing. It was a simple statement, but to Emily, it felt like a bridge being built across a chasm she had long thought impossible to cross. Thanks, Dad, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm trying to make something that everyone can enjoy. It's not just about me. It's about bringing us all together. He nodded, but she could see the uncertainty in his eyes. That familiar concern flickered across his face, and for a moment, doubt clouded her spirit. Did he truly understand? Just then, a couple of children rushed past them, giggling as they took a moment to circle around Sam, who was explaining some new designs for the toy car. Their joy was infectious, initiating a warmth inside Emily that chased away the chill of her father's distance. You should join us, she said, her heart racing with hope. It's going to be amazing. There is so much we can do together. Jim hesitated. The sound of thunder rumbled softly in the distance, almost like a warning. I don't know, I'm not good with those things. I don't want to let you down. Emily's heart sank a little. But Dad, it's not about being good or bad. It's about trying. Please, just give it a chance. A flicker of something crossed his eyes. Was it fear? Shame? She couldn't quite tell, but it filled her with an urgency she hadn't expected. Seeing the joy around her, she took a step closer. What's more important than building this project? The kids are counting on us. Jim shifted his feet, looking distracted, as distant as before. You know I've failed before, Emily. What if I fail again? Or, what if you don't? Her voice was firmer now, filled with the strength she had cultivated in the last hour. What if this is the moment you change everything for us? Finally, the storm cloud shifted, revealing a sliver of sunlight breaking through. It felt like a sign, a promise of new beginnings. You might surprise yourself, Dad. We really need your help. A small spark lit up in Jim's expression, almost imperceptible, but Emily seized it. Come on, she urged, her heart thumping with renewed energy. Let us just try. I don't want to do this without you. As she reached out and took his hand, she felt a flicker of hope. What if they could rebuild? Not just the toy, but their relationship? He hesitated for a moment, but then, to her surprise, he squeezed her hand back. Before she could think more about it, a child called out, "Hey, are you joining the project, Mr. Jim?" The innocent excitement in the little boy's voice was an unexpected blast of momentum. Jim looked down at Emily, pondering, and for a long moment, she thought perhaps he was connecting it all: the kids, the project, their bond. "Okay," he finally said, his voice softening, yet laced with uncertainty. "Let us see what I can do." Emily's heart soared. A tide of warmth flooded through her as the clouds continued to part above them. She felt weight lift off her shoulders, the buzz of children around her now joyful and buoyant. "Yay!" The kids erupted, a chorus of cheers mixed in with their innocent laughter. But then she caught a glimpse of the distant clouds regrouping, reminding her that unspoken fears still lingered between them. Would this moment be enough to heal the past, or just a temporary reprieve? As they began to walk toward the group hand in hand, Emily felt the storm within her, still brewing fears mingling with excitement. What if this was just the beginning, or worse, a false dawn? What unexpected challenges lay ahead to test their fragile bond? The thought lingered as they joined Sam and the kids, laughter resounding in the breeze, leaving Emily to wonder just how deep the road to understanding really ran. As they approached the colorful chaos of children working together, Emily's heart pulsated with exhilaration. The ties that seemed to bind her and Jim in tense uncertainty appeared to loosen, replaced by a flicker of shared purpose. The laughter of vibrant young voices filled the air, swirling like confetti around them. Jim's demeanor shifted as he took in the scene. He scanned the kids with cautious curiosity, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. She could practically see the gears turning in his mind, contemplating the vibrant energy around him. It encouraged Emily a chance for her dad to connect and be a part of something greater. "Look, Dad. We need to decide what colors to paint the cars," chimed Sam, vibrant with enthusiasm, holding up a palette of bright choices. "Right," Jim replied, his voice still low but more animated. "I guess you can't go wrong with what do kids like these days. It's all about neon, Dad." Emily chuckled, buoyed by the moment. "Neon green is a hit." Jim laughed, a rich sound that seemed to echo with warmth she hadn't heard in years. "Neon green it is then." The kids erupted in a new wave of cheers, and Emily felt her spirits soar higher. Encouragement surged in her chest as she witnessed that first glimmer of connection. They settled into the work, Jim guiding the kids through design ideas, engaging them in conversations about their wildest car fantasies. Together, they set up at a worn picnic table, the wood cool beneath their fingers. Emily joined in, passing materials and laughing at the playful banter between Sam and the other children. A moment passed, laughter intertwined with the sound of paint hitting the wooden surfaces, when Emily caught a glimpse of distress that shattered her bubble of joy. A little girl, no older than 8, stood apart from the group, her face crumpled in pain. The others were too engrossed in their painting to notice. "Hey, are you okay, sweetie?" Emily approached gently, her heart sinking as she noticed the child clutching her hand, tears welling in her eyes. I hurt my hand," the girl stammered, trying to hold back sobs. Emily's instincts kicked in, and she knelt beside her. "What happened?" "I tried to touch the paintbrush, but I dropped it, and it hit my hand," she explained, looking up through tear-streaked cheeks. "Let us take a look," Emily said, carefully examining the small hand. A small red mark blossomed on the back. But before she could reassure the girl, a shadow loomed behind her. Jim knelt down, concern flashing across his features as he assessed the girl's injury. "I can help," he said, his voice both calm and commanding. The little girl regarded him, still trembling, but something about Jim's presence seemed to settle the storm within her. He reached into his bag and pulled out a first aid kit, his hands cluttered with supplies. Emily felt pride swell as she watched him take charge, looking like a father who had finally found a reason to be present. As he gently cleaned the girl's hand, Jim's voice softened, the warmth wrapping around them. "You'll be okay. "You're so brave," he murmured, his eyes holding a sincerity that pierced Emily's heart. In that moment, something shifted. It was more than just an act of helping. It was a small revelation that could open the door to rebuilding their fractured past. As the girl's tears faded into a shy smile, Emily recognized the unfolding potential of healing, not just for the little one, but for her and Jim too. Yet, even in this moment of warmth, Emily felt a tension pulse beneath the surface. Shadows still lurked, unwilling to be ignored. Would this simple act of kindness truly bridge the gap between them, or would challenges soon break through their fragile truce? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, and shadows began to stretch, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The sun continued its descent, casting long fingers of warm light across the playground. The air was thick with the scent of fresh paint and childhood dreams. Emily glanced at Jim, who was smiling down at the little girl with a tender care she hadn't seen in years. It was a reminder of the father he used to be, before life's complexities tangled their relationship beyond recognition. "Thank you, mister," the girl exclaimed, her voice a soft bell of gratitude that rang in Emily's ears. Jim stood and gently ruffled her hair, a gesture so simple, yet it felt monumental. It was a bridge, and every small connection they built felt like a step toward mending their own broken partnership. "Now, how about you get back to painting those cars?" Jim encouraged, and the girl nodded, her fear washed away like the paint they were using. As the children returned to their work, laughter erupted once more, and Emily found herself laughing along. It was infectious. Looking over at Jim, she noticed him in the moment, no longer the distant figure she'd grown accustomed to. Here, with splashes of color and laughter, he was present, really present.
"See?"
she said, nudging him as they both watched Sam proudly demonstrate the vibrant strokes he'd perfected.
"You've still got it, Dad. You know how to connect."
Jim's smile faded slightly as he considered her words. "It's just paint, he replied softly, as though he was trying to downplay what was happening. "I'm just trying to help." "Exactly," Emily replied, her heart hopeful. "This is what it means to really help." They worked side by side, filling the wooden cars with swirls of neon and sparkles of imagination. Each brushstroke seemed to peel back layers of silence that had cloaked their relationship. The laughter from the kids felt like a soundtrack to their gradual reconnection. Yet, every now and then, Emily would catch a glimpse of uncertainty in Jim's eyes. As they painted, she resolved to address the elephant in the room. "Dad," she started, hesitation gripping her heart. "Can we talk later? About everything?" "Of course," he replied, looking at her with genuine concern. "When you're ready." Just then, Sam called out, "Hey, look at my car, Mom. It's got flames on the side." His pride spilled into their little circle, momentarily pulling Emily back into the joy of the moment. "Great job, buddy." Jim cheered, his enthusiasm infectious. Emily felt the warmth of family, the bond curling around them, and for just that moment, she believed they could rebuild something truly wonderful together. But as the paint dried on their creations, she felt the tension creep back in, the unspoken words still heavy between them. The sun began to dip, painting the sky with hues of purple and orange, a backdrop of beauty that felt ironic against their unresolved issues. What if this was just a fleeting moment of connection? A small bandage on a much larger wound? In that anxious silence, as they stood in front of the cheerful cars, a new wave of uncertainty washed over her. "Emily," Jim said, breaking the quietude as the kids carried on, "we need to be honest with each other soon. No more pretending." "Yeah," she replied, heart racing. "But can we also just enjoy this for now?" He nodded, but his eyes revealed a depth of things left unsaid. As they turned back to the children, Emily's mind raced with the weight of impending conversations. What truths awaited them just beyond this playful afternoon? Would they be ready when the moment came? Or would fear hold them prisoner once more? The last rays of sunlight flickered over the playground, marking the end of the day and maybe the calm before the storm. As the last hue of orange melted into the indigo sky, the playground began to empty. The laughter of children faded into a whisper, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves. Emily watched as the last few kids packed their things, reluctant to leave the colorful mess they had created. The wooden cars were scattered everywhere, each one a testament to a moment well spent. "Maybe we should help clean up," Emily suggested, trying to keep the atmosphere light. She busied herself gathering paintbrushes that were still splattered with the remnants of vivid colors. "Sure," Jim agreed, still holding a bright blue car in his hand. "But I think I'd prefer to leave some for the next group. They could use a little inspiration, right?" His smile was genuine, and Emily felt her heart warm at the sight. As they worked together, silence settled in, but it wasn't uncomfortable. The air felt full of potential, like the calm before the rain. She stole glances at Jim, observing the way he could so easily slip back into the father she loved, even amidst all the shadows of their past. But as she wiped her hands on her jeans, Emily felt that familiar knot tighten in her chest. "You know, Dad," she began hesitantly, "you were really great today. With the kids, I mean." She watched him, hoping her words would spark a more profound conversation without diving into rocky waters immediately. "Thanks, he said, focusing on a particularly stubborn splotch of paint on his palm. "It was nice. I guess I just needed a reminder of what really matters." Clearing her throat, Emily took a small step forward, breaking down the invisible barrier that had built between them for so long. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, stealing a glance at the sky. "I've been thinking about how I haven't been the best father or husband. Life got busy and, Dad, you don't have to explain. I just want to understand how we can move forward." She interrupted gently, her voice barely above a whisper. Jim looked deep into her eyes, and for a second, the air crackled between them. This was the defining moment she hoped they'd find when the fear gave way to honesty and the chance to rebuild. "I've messed up, I let my work take precedence over being here for you and Sam," he admitted, his voice thick. And he faltered, and the words hung in the air, waiting like an offering. "And?" she prompted, feeling a surge of urgency. "After your mom," he swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "I fell apart. I thought moving on meant focusing on what I could control, but I realize now that was wrong. I should have focused on you both instead." There it was, the truth, raw and open. In the fading afternoon light, everything felt bared, like the walls that shielded their hearts were cracking. Emily reached out, placing her hand over his.
"We need that honesty, Dad."
"I've felt lost for so long." Just then, a commotion drew their attention. A little girl, the same one Jim had helped earlier, was crying just a few feet away. She had fallen, caught up in the swirls of paint and laughter, her tiny hands scraped and muddy. Emily and Jim exchanged glances, and in an instant, the connection they were forging was eclipsed by the urgent need to help. "Let us go," Jim said, his fatherly instinct kicking in. Together, they hurried over, a mix of anxiety and purpose propelling them forward. As they reached the girl, Emily knelt beside her. "Hey there, sweetheart. What happened?" Tears rolled down the girl's cheeks, but her voice was steady. "I hurt my hand," she sniffled, showing a scrape that was much bigger in her mind than in reality. Jim knelt beside Emily, the worry etched on his face. "Let us take a look, okay?"
he said softly.
But as he examined the hurt hand, Emily felt her own heart flutter with newfound determination. This was not only an opportunity to help, but a chance to stay present together, to not shy away from vulnerability anymore. "Emily," Jim said, his attention now fully on her as the girl calmed under their gentle care, "we can't run from these moments. They'll always come when we least expect it. Let us make sure we're ready for them then," she replied, squeezing his hand. She looked back at the girl, wiping her eyes gently. "And you'll be okay, sweetheart. We're here with you." As Jim bandaged the child's hand, a wave of warmth washed over Emily, filling her with hope. Maybe this moment would shape their future. Maybe, just maybe, they could establish a bridge strong enough to carry them across the deep waters of their unspoken feelings. But deep down, she realized that this tenderness came with a price. The conversation she had been avoiding loomed ahead, waiting like a storm cloud ready to break. Would this moment in their lives grant them the strength to face the truth? What other hidden wounds would they have to confront together? The little girl sniffled, her tears slowly turning to a quietude, as Jim wrapped up the makeshift bandage with a gentle touch. Emily couldn't help but smile at the way he spoke to her, his voice softening with each word.
See?
All better, he said with a reassuring grin. The girl glanced down at her hand, and for a moment, her innocent blue eyes brightened. Thank you, mister, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Emily felt a swell of admiration for Jim. He, who had been lost in the maze of his own pain, had just helped this child find comfort in a moment that could have been just another fall turned into fear. As the little girl returned to her friends, Emily turned to Jim. You were really good with her, she said, her heart fluttering. It's like you were completely present, and I mean it. He interrupted, almost sheepishly. I want to be there for you, too. For both of you. He looked serious, the weight of his confession hanging between them like a lantern, casting light on their path forward. Then let us talk, she started, hesitation creeping back in. They could feel the moment of truth approaching, but the sharp edges of their past still loomed large. Just as she steeled herself to dive deeper, the fading daylight kicked up a swirl of dust in the air, creating a golden haze around them. Do you remember the treehouse we used to talk about building? Jim's voice broke through her thoughts, nostalgic and warm. The question surprised her, but it was that very warmth she longed for, memories wrapped in love. I do, she replied quietly, the vision of a wooden fort with optimistic dreams painted on each plank flickering in her mind. We had plans, but they never happened. Jim sighed, his gaze distant. But what if we could still make something of that dream? A future that includes both of us? I mean, I can't change the past, but I want to start fresh. Emily bit her lip, the weight of his words settling like snowflakes on her heart. She took a breath, trying to find the right words. I don't want us to be stuck in our old patterns, Dad. We can't forget the hurt, but we can try to rebuild. Together. His eyes sparkled with something she hadn't seen before, a flicker of hope. Then let's start with small things. A treehouse. A dinner. Just you and me. With a nervous laugh, she said, you might want to start practicing how to use a hammer first, though. Hey, it wouldn't be the first time I've messed up a project, he chuckled, the sound breaking the tension and floating like a warm breeze. They both shared a laugh, a sacred sound that echoed back to simpler times. But as they helped each other collect the last of the scattered toys, Emily felt the warmth of the conversation taper off, the undercurrents of unspoken truths still swirling around them. Could they truly build that treehouse of trust, or did it require more than just dreams? Dad, if we're gonna do this, we need to share everything, she said, looking up at him earnestly. No more hiding. The evening seemed to still around them, waiting for his response. Jim looked at her with a mix of apprehension and determination. You're right. I owe you that. Before he could finish, a distant bark interrupted them, breaking the spell. A dog ran by, chasing after nothing and everything at once. It was a small moment, but it brought a light-heartedness that contrasted with their heavy discussion. We should probably head back home. Sam will be wondering where we are, she said, gathering the last paintbrush in silence. Yeah, but, he hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty returning to his expression. I want to keep talking. Whatever this is, feels important. Emily nodded, a bittersweet thrill racing through her.
Me too, Dad.
But are we ready to peel back more layers? His eyes bore into hers as she clutched the brushes tightly. The remnants of their past still echoed like distant thunder, but a brighter horizon lay ahead. What truths awaited them? What would they uncover in their quest for healing? As they walked towards the parking lot, the gentle hum of the evening surrounded them, but the real storm loomed just below the surface, a tempest of fears, secrets, and the possibility of renewed bonds. Would their journey toward understanding strengthen their family or unravel the fragile thread that was slowly weaving them back together? The cool evening air wrapped around them like an embrace as they reached the parking lot. A few families were packing up picnics, their children laughing, oblivious to the heaviness weighing on Emily and Jim's hearts. They stepped into the car, the familiar scent of old leather and air fresheners filling the small space. Emily glanced over at Jim, who was staring straight ahead, lost in thought. "Dad," she broke the silence, her voice steady yet soft. "What are we afraid of?" He hesitated, fingers drumming nervously on the steering wheel. "I guess I'm afraid of disappointing you again. I don't want us to slip back into our old ways." His admission hung in the air, a fragile thread woven within the silence of the car. "Me too," she replied, the honesty in her tone piercing through the uncertainty. "But if we don't try, how will we ever know?" He turned to her, the weight of her words settling in his chest. "What if I mess it up?" "Then we fix it together," Emily said, her heart racing with hope. No pressure to be perfect, just to be real. Jim nodded slowly, feeling the warmth of her words melt away the chill of fear he had carried for so long. They drove through the familiar neighborhood, the comforting sights of homes sparking distant, happy memories. The neighborhood that once felt like a prison was now alive with possibility. "Can we start with that dinner?" he asked, his voice steadier now. "Absolutely," she smiled. "And I get to choose the menu." He chuckled, finally allowing himself to relax.
Okay.
"But you might regret that. I can't promise my culinary skills are any better than my DIY abilities."
Deal.
The banter flowed easier now, the distance between them shrinking like the fading light outside. Once home, they kicked off their shoes and migrated to the kitchen. The clattering of pots and the faint sound of the TV in the background filled the space as Emily rummaged for ingredients. She summoned up a spaghetti recipe they used to make together when she was younger, a simple dish that bore the weight of countless laughs and chattered. As she prepared, Jim watched, his heart swelling with a tinge of nostalgia. "You remember how you used to steal the meatballs while I wasn't looking?" he asked, a playful grin on his face. "Of course. I still do that every chance I get." She laughed, her voice light again. The evening unfolded like pages of a well-loved book, each moment a step toward what could be a new chapter for them. But with laughter came the shadow of silence, again the stray thoughts that lingered just under the surface, the looming questions unasked. The memories of hurt brushed against their hearts like shadows dancing just out of reach. "Do you think we can really leave the past behind?" Emily ventured, stirring the sauce, her voice barely above a whisper. He paused, looking deep into her eyes, those eyes that mirrored his own anguish and resilience. "I want to believe we can, but it's going to take work. More than we think." "Then let us put in the work," she resolved, her chin up, a fire igniting within her. "Let us be different." With those words, the barriers felt a little less daunting. Yet deep down, they both knew that true healing would require more than stockpiling memories and laughter. As the spaghetti simmered, they shared stories, rekindling the memories while slowly teasing apart those old scars. It wasn't perfect, not even close, but it was a start. Just as they gathered around the table, the phone buzzed on the counter. Emily picked it up, a frown forming on her lips as she glanced at the screen. "It's Mom," she said quietly. There it was, the weight of unresolved issues crashing back in an instant. Would this be the call that unraveled everything they had just built? "Should we answer it?" Jim asked, a palpable tension settling back into the room. Emily hesitated, uncertainty swirling like the steam from the pasta. Should they confront the past now or hold on to this fragile hope for a while longer? As she looked at Jim, she felt the stakes rising. What would happen next? Would they welcome the storm or shield their newly forged bond?
All
that hung in the balance as she pressed the green button. The call was brief, but every word felt like a thunderclap, shaking the fragile foundation Emily and Jim had begun to build. The distant voice of Emily's mother echoed from the other end, a mix of nostalgia and lingering bitterness.
"Hey, just checking in."
A simple question, yet it opened a torrent of feelings. "I'm good," Emily stammered, glancing anxiously at her dad. In that moment, she felt the walls closing in again. Jim was frozen at the table, his breath caught in his throat. The conversation continued, brief and superficial, but Emily caught glimpses of the hurt they had tried to mouth from the past. When she hung up, The silence transformed into an almost suffocating presence. The warmth of the kitchen seemed to flee, leaving a chill in its wake. "Maybe we shouldn't have answered," Jim said quietly, his voice almost trembling. "No, Dad. It was real," Emily countered, the disappointment of their moment hanging heavy in the air. "We can't avoid the hard stuff." He nodded slowly, processing her words. "I guess I'm just scared." His voice broke, vulnerability spilling onto the table like the sauce simmering beside them. "Me too. But we have to lean in," Emily insisted, her eyes burning with fierce determination. "When you're ready, we can talk about everything." As they stood in the kitchen, the daylight faded, creating a darkness that felt more comfortable than the confrontation looming ahead. Holding on to hope while weathering storms would be their new reckoning. "We've had our share of storms, haven't we?" Jim asked, a slight smile coaxing its way onto his face as he took a breath. "Like that time I forgot to mention the school play?" It was an old, familiar tale that took some of the weight off their shoulders. Emily couldn't help but laugh, her fingers softening as they stirred the pot. "You thought I wanted to be a tree, Dad." "A tree? Hey, I was busy. That's a hard role to fill." He chuckled back, both of them bursting into genuine laughter that filled the kitchen, a sound so beautiful it felt like home. The laughter didn't erase their scars, but it eased the tension, reminding them of their bond, the one that was still there, waiting to be nurtured back to life. As they dished out the spaghetti, with its sauce bubbling like the promise of fresh starts, they sat at the table, quiet for a moment. Emily looked up at her dad and said, "It's okay if we don't get everything right immediately. The important part is that we're both trying." He exhaled, releasing burdens he had carried alone for too long. "You're right," he said gently. "We're in this together. It'll take practice," but he paused, grinning. "I'd take tree-building classes together any day." "Me too," Emily replied, feeling lighter. "Let us create something worthwhile." In sharing their meal, they slowly unearthed dreams and returned to stories that danced in the sunlight of simpler times. Each bite was more than just food, they were feeding their connection. Beyond the laughter, their hearts were drawing closer. Hours slid by, filled with words pushed past old barriers. The laughter was a bridge, reminding them what it meant to be a family. But the true test waited silently. The shadows of grief lingered over their heads, the moments of honesty that still awaited. "Dad," Emily said as the last remnants of their meal disappeared, "there's still so much to talk about."
About Mom.
"About us." He looked back, an earnestness crossing his face again.
"I want that."
"You're right. No more hiding." Emily took a deep breath, courage welling up within her. "How do we start to talk about all the things we've been avoiding?" Jim set his fork down, his eyes guiding her deeper. "We start with the things we love. And we don't stop there." Taking his hand across the table, she felt warmth wash over her, bolstering their shared resolve. They could be vulnerable and imperfect and grow together. "I love you, Dad," Emily said softly, her voice a gentle caress that thickened with emotion. "I love you too, Em. It's time we create all our tomorrows together," he replied as they both dared to hope for the future.
As they
reached for each other's hands, the colors of their past illuminated their path forward. The air felt lighter and warmer, no longer crowded by unspoken fears. A network of memories would be their foundation, fuel for this new beginning. Standing up from the table, they exchanged smiles that blossomed with infinite possibilities. They would build the treehouse, connect with each other, craft beauty from pain, and finally confront their unspoken truths. The journey of renewing their bond had begun. And at that very moment, the storm within them ceased, making way for hope to flood back in, dancing away the shadows. Together, they stood, united at the threshold of a brighter tomorrow, ready to embrace whatever came next. Now, hear me out. If you felt that emotional roller coaster in this story, you need to subscribe now, so you won't miss the next exclusive tales that tug at your heart. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our community thriving. I want to know your thoughts. Comment below and let me feel your reactions to this. Ending your feelings matter. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use a wave of transformation. Let us spread the love.